Welcome to the Light Up podcast. I am your host, Amy Wilkinson. I'm an intuitive guide and soul mentor, and through this podcast, you will receive conscious conversations, powerful downloads, and soul-stirring activations that will both support and inspire you to tap into your intuition, follow that higher calling, and live a life aligned with your soul. Because you are here to co-create a life rich in abundance, freedom, and deep joy, and to unleash who you truly came here to be. And we're here to help you discover how to access that. So let's dive on in and light up. Welcome back to Light Up. I'm your host, Amy Wilkinson. Thank you so much for tuning in today. So if you know me, or if you've been in my world for a while, you would have known that I love manifesting, or what I like to call conscious co-creating, which is really where we work alongside the divine, or you might call it spirit, where we stay connected to this wiser, greater, vaster consciousness. You might call that God, you might call that universe, you might even just call that life, but it's this divine intelligence that creates, that brings things and ideas into form. So there's a collaboration, I believe, a partnership I think of that happens when we manifest. And at least if you are tapped into that awareness, I believe is when our manifestations happen much more quicker, and we start to access so much more than what we think is possible with our limited perceptions, because we don't always know what's for our highest good. We don't know the ways in which to bring things into form. And this is when we collaborate, or when we connect and we co-create alongside spirit or divine, or however you connect to that, whatever understanding you have that speaks to you, that feels real for you. When we unite and we work with that consciousness, it brings things into form in such a magical, easeful way. And I want to speak to this today. And I just also feel called to share a little bit more about my process and practice, if it's of benefit. Your manifestation, it's such a hot topic. And, if you look through the internet, there are so many different ways that you can manifest. There are so many different opinions and steps around how manifestation works. I don't personally resonate with manifestation when we make it a process that feels quite externalized, because it then becomes just like another task that we want to add to our to-do list, and one which we can feel separate from, and we can feel disconnected from. And that's when I find manifestation can get quite heady, and it's not how I work. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like a lot of the goal setting that's promoted at the start of the year and mindset work, because I think we fall into this trap of making it very mind-based. And I believe that we create more from our feelings, from the subconscious beliefs, and from who we are being, rather than what we're thinking. Thoughts play a role, certainly, but so much of what we do in life is ruled by the logical, analytical mind. And I think when we come to manifesting, we just make this another thing that gets very heady and intellectual. And there's a disconnection that happens, I believe, when we approach it from that perspective. Right, so I'm not a huge fan of mindset work without the important embodiment piece. Right, I'm a yoga teacher, right? It's all about embodiment, and I think this path of embodiment is so key when we're wanting to create anything in our life, whether that's to have more wealth and abundance. Right, it's so important that we are tapped into what does that feel like in our body. And how are we creating through, via that feeling space? So that's my opinion around it, at any rate. This embodiment piece is when we drop in and we access who we are being. And what I find in the work that I do with clients and what I've seen in the community is a lot of the time when we approach it from more of that mindset perspective, uh, we are disconnecting and we're not truly accessing the potency of the creativity and the knowing and the feeling that comes from deeper within us, if that makes sense. Which is why, in the meditation practices that I facilitate, so much of it, and in the movement-based practices, so much of it is this dropping in, because we're so ruled by the mind most of the time in what we do and the decisions we make. So to me, that feels like it's a really important distinction when it comes from manifesting, is to be in resonance with, you know, the feeling piece. Okay, so I love to manifest from a place of embodiment, where it becomes an integrated practice with your waking reality. And it then becomes so much more natural and effortless. And that's the place I want to speak to today, because it gets to be so much easier and so much more enjoyable than what we make it out to be. And some people might steer away from manifesting because they don't believe it, that they don't, that it becomes just another hard thing, right? Another hard mountain that you've got to climb. So I'm going to kind of debunk that a little bit today, hopefully, because it gets to be so much easier than we make it out to be. And it gets to be so much easier when we move alongside spirit or the divine. Insert your own word here that resonates with you. So I guess, there's this premise here, or there needs to, at least if you're operating in this way, be this understanding that there is a greater energy that we are working with. Call it what you will. That has created everything in this universe. We can't deny that. We see this all around us in nature, in the magic in nature, in the perfection in nature. And there's another important piece here, which is faith, right? Leaning into faith and trust. And I believe for many of us, in what I see, we've forgotten how to perhaps access, but certainly utilize our faith and trust muscles. And when there we have faith, anything is possible. The impossible becomes possible. We see magic. So, and I'll speak to that, this faith piece, because it's a requirement when you are going down this path of co-creating. Really, really important piece. So I've manifested so many amazing things in my life, in relationships and experiences. So I'm coming from a place of having witnessed and seen evidence in my own life of the tremendous power and magic of manifestation, or of co-creation. And I do believe that there are some key ingredients that have allowed this practice to be much more easeful than we need to be. And I want to share them today. And there's more, and we can expand upon this, but for the purpose of this podcast, these are just a few key things that I really feel are so important if you are interested in manifesting, in bringing through something into your reality that is what you truly desire. So really, for me, I got into manifesting from quite a young age. I've always allowed myself to dream and contemplate what it is that I wanted. I mean, I remember from a young age, and I'm looking back into my teens really, and it was probably the latter teens when I was around year 10, year 11 and 12, and when we started to do some more, some bigger kind of work around grades and so forth. This is school grades. And I remember, visualizing and even writing about the particular grades that I wanted to get in different subjects. And I would sit in bed at night and I would write about it as if it was occurring right now, right in present moment. And sure enough, I did achieve those grades. So that's just a memory that really sticks out. So, from an early age, I was also into the books, and this is what helped. I was into books by Louise Hay. And one of her earliest, I think was her earliest, was You Can Hear Your Life. And this was thanks to the influence of my mum. At the time, she was very much into that kind of, let's say, new agey positive thinking movement that was coming alive um, in the 90s then. So Louise Hay was a big influence. Wayne Dyer. I actually read their books in my teens, and so I believed in magic. I really, really connected with those teachers. Um, and I was brought up to believe via these teachers and what they were offering in their books, that anything is possible, that we create from our thoughts and from what we're believing in. Right? So it taught me to believe in the impossible and to believe in the invisible from a very young age. And I'm saying this invisible consciousness that works with us and alongside us. And that our thoughts become things and that we're only limited by what we believe is possible for ourselves. So, and I can remember, what was quite traumatic for me at the time, and I think I might have been in year 11 perhaps, or 12. And I'd broken up from a long term, I say long term, I mean, it might have been a year or two, which was long at that age, relationship where I felt very, very devastated. I really did. And it was one of those books when I was around 17 or 18 of Wayne Dyer's that I picked up. And this was kind of that first awakening, or what I like to call a remembering. Remember who we are. And the book was You'll See It When You Believe It. And it was the first spiritual book that I picked up, and that I read alongside that, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, which is a brilliant, both of them so brilliant. And so began this relationship to the invisible force that moves through us and connects us to everything, which I later came to know and understand through my studies in yoga and spirituality as the divine, which is what we reunite with through the practice of yoga. Yoga means union, right? But this started for me from quite a young age. And I know that has helped me in what I've been able to create in my life, is that deepening relationship and understanding of the divine, and trust in that no matter what, it always has my back. And I've been fortunate enough to experience where things come so beautifully into alignment in my life that I could really only describe as magic, when I've allowed myself to dream my desires into form. And I was always a writer, and I used to journal, and I used to write about what I would want. And when I look back, I wrote about everything that I wanted. Like I was writing a story of my life, but from present moment awareness. It hadn't occurred yet, but I was tapping into that. So that was always a really big part that was developed in me from a young age. And what it enabled me to do is to really develop over time faith and trust in the path that I am on, and in knowing that when I have a clear intention and I allow myself to dream and put some key steps in place, which I'll go through soon, you start to realize that what you are seeking is seeking you. And when you move forward with this clarity and with this trust and faith, it becomes this knowing that whatever it is that you are desiring, it can't not come into form when you have that faith and trust muscle developed, and you have a pure heart and you have a clear intention. So as I started to learn more about this from a vibrational perspective or a scientific perspective, because, science and spirituality, they do intersect. And then, my knowing and my trust in this developed even more. And I came to understand how we are energy and how it's our vibration. We are vibrational beings. It's how our vibration that literally draws things towards us like a magnet based on the frequency we are operating on. And by the way, we get to choose what that frequency is based on how we're letting ourselves feel, based on the thoughts that we're thinking, based on the things that we're doing that light us up, which all raise up our frequency. And these are universal laws. This is the law of attraction. This is the law of vibration. They're universal laws. They're powerful and they work. And I've seen so much evidence in my life. I could write a book about all of the things that have come into form. So, like, better than I could have even imagined when I got out of my own way. And I've spoken about this before in that episode where I mentioned about manifesting our beach home. I've done this in business in a lot of different ways, and I now coach others how to do this because it's fun and we all have access to this. So, if I was to give you just 3 key steps, because I know we all like steps and we all want to know the steps, they would be this. Number 1 is get to know yourself first. What is it that you truly want? Not from a need basis or a should basis or a needing to please anyone outside of you, which might be your mode of operation. So just check that. When we're coming from a need, it's a needy energy. And I find that's more of a pushing away rather than an attracting and drawing in. So we don't manifest from a need. And that feels quite disconnected as well. And as I said, needy. It just doesn't have the same energy. We want to manifest, we want to tap into that deeper place that perhaps you don't always allow yourself to access. And I'm talking here desires and soul desires. And maybe you don't allow yourself to access this because the rational mind can very quickly come in and tell you all the reasons why you can't have that. So don't even bother dreaming that up. Right? The ego doesn't like the unfamiliar. And if we're going into those desires, it's probably likely going to be a lot bigger than what we're currently experiencing because our desires ask us to go for something more, and that might feel quite triggering if you don't believe that you're either deserving of that, or you don't believe that you can access that, or you're not smart enough, or you're not good enough. All of the stories can pull us away from accessing those deeper desires. So making space to dream, to give room to your desires is key here. This is fundamental. We've got to know what's there. What is it that's there that we really want? If we knew that the answer was going to be yes, if we weren't limited by what we see in our current reality. So that's the first one. And here's the thing. If you're hearing this going, I actually don't know what I want. I'm calling you up on that because I believe we all know what we want. And it's often that we're just not allowing ourselves to access it or to acknowledge it. Maybe we're afraid of not getting it. Okay? Notice if the worry comes in about how it might impact others. It's interesting what we meet here. So you just notice it and you observe it. So intention is number 1, and then you place that order out into the universe. But we need to do our bit in tapping into that. The second important piece is the feeling. Letting yourself feel more into the elevated emotions that are connected to that desire. How would it feel for you to have that thing? Because here's the thing. It's not the thing that we want. It's not the overseas holiday or the bigger house or the new car. We think that it is. And that's okay if we allow ourselves to desire those things. That's really important. But it's the feeling that gives us. So if it's the holiday, it's like, how would you feel when you're on that holiday and when you have that? And you might feel peace and space and freedom and ease and joy. That's what it is that we want. So connecting with those higher vibrational feelings like joy and appreciation and gratitude. Okay, letting yourself dwell in the frequency of that rather than being in the fear or the doubt, and just noticing, are you letting yourself access those feelings now? Because we think it's the thing that we need to bring those feelings in, to activate those feelings. We don't realize that we all have access to those vibrations. So say if it's joy and you're not quite feeling joyful at the moment, okay, what brings you joy though? What lights you up? What helps you to feel that? So being able to access those feelings now is going to help to raise up the frequency of who you are being. And this is really important piece in that is letting yourself feel good. So that first one is intention, placing the order, knowing what you want. The second is letting yourself feel good. Feel the feelings that having that would bring to you, because we create so much from the feeling piece. Let yourself access those feelings now. And the third piece, and this is really fun, it's connecting to the it is done energy, knowing it is done. And this is the part where we let the divine come in and weave its magic. Notice in this process, you may go into the how. How on earth could I have that? Because of X, Y, and Z that I see in front of me. How on earth is that possible? See if you can soften and quieten that part of you. Because, we're used to wanting to work things out. So often we want to try and micromanage this process. But if we do that, we are pushing those dreams and those desires further down the path. When we know that it's done, and by the way, there's a brilliant book called It's Done. It is done. It's this final stage of manifesting. And it's a simple text, but it's powerful. When we know it's done, we are anchored fully in trust. We know. And it's the energy of if you've just completed a task, let's say you've completed a task at work and your coworker says to you, how are you going with that project? And you say, it's done. It is done. You have that same confidence in the process like this. It's the knowing that it's done. That gets you out of your own way so that you can let the magic come through. So when we know it's done, we're anchored into trust and faith. And from there, what happens is that we'll start to take some steps. This is called inspired action. Because where we're working with the divine, we're going to notice that things are going to pop up, synchronicities, signs, maybe messages. The path is slowly going to come clearer when we hold this clear intention, when we stay connected to the feeling, and when we know it's done, we're going to start to take some steps, one step at a time in the direction of that desired outcome. And as you do this, you're always going to stay on the path and you can trust in that. And there's a few things that are going to try and steer you off the path and try and derail you. Our old friend worry, right? Worry is the opposite of the it is done energy. Worry is the opposite of trust and faith. So you get to choose, who are you aligning with? And I see so much of the time we invest far too much of our precious energy and mind power into worry, and it doesn't actually serve anything or anyone. And I was reading somewhere that it takes the same amount of energy to be in fear as it does to be in trust. So what are you going to choose? And so much of the time, fear and worry, it's just a program. And it's hardwired into us. And it's that safety mechanism, and we're just used to doing that. So, this is where we need to develop more of a connection and relationship with the divine and less of a reliance on fear and worry to lead the way, because it is not going to help you in this practice of manifestation. In fact, it's going to derail you, if anything, and it'll just take longer for you to get where you want to get to, or for you to, let's say, magnetize. Because I always think of this with, as we're vibrational beings, we want to match the frequency of our desires. We want to get on that frequency, and then it just becomes effortless, and we're just bringing into our reality that which is for us, and we know it. So there's no place for the fear and worry. We need to start to operate from more of this beautiful place of faith and trust. I could do a whole another podcast episode on faith and trust. it can be really triggering. It can be really triggering because we are so used to wanting to know, I need you to give me evidence. And if you find that you encounter that as you go down this path, then ask for that guidance. Ask to be shown. Ask your angel team or your guides or spirit. Test it out. I need some support at the moment. Can you show me, or can you help me take away these fears? And there's some angels. If you listen to the episode we recorded with this beautiful Sarah Mackenzie, there are some specific archangels you can call on. Archangel Faith is one of them. And Archangel Faith can be great also at lifting off some of those fears. Archangel Michael is brilliant with that as well. And you can call on them. They're omnipresent. You can access them at any time. Can you help to lift off these fears at the moment? And one of the things on that with fears that I've found is when you are dreaming big, when you are tapping into desires that are meant for you, but are maybe a bit bigger than what you've ever dreamed up before, you're going to meet fear. So let it be a really good confirmation for you that you're on the right path. I always say, like, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. Because you want to get to that place where you're rocking the boat a little bit, because it means that you're stretching out of just what is known and what is predictable. And this is a good thing. This is where we expand. This is where we grow. This is where we meet a new version of us who is living on the frequency of what we desire. And this is the work that I love to take my clients into, because it's fun and it works. So this is just a few of the steps. I am going to run a bigger masterclass on this, but also if you're interested in these topics, these are things that we're going to be expanding into more in the Light Path Collective. So that's the membership portal that I've created, and we launch at the start of May. And these are fortnightly calls, guys, which is bringing together, so group calls, but you receive coaching around this. So if you have some stumbling blocks, if you're meeting resistance on this path, or you've got some challenges, or you need some support, or you're just looking for ways where you can expand in who you are and in your impact, this is going to be the right place for you, because we're on this path together and we're here to support each other. So you'll receive that guidance, the teachings, the coaching from me. Sarah Mackenzie will be coming in, Alison Potts. I've got some other great guests, and this is all geared around supporting you on this path, so you know that you're not alone, but also helping you to go a little further, to reach a little higher, to get beyond the habit of who you've been in your programming that's maybe held you back and kept you stuck. This isn't the year where we just stay playing on that same field. We're going to go a little bigger. And I'm so excited for those who are saying yes to this platform. Make sure you join this month if you're going to do it, because you get a great discount. You can cancel at any time, and it's going to be a beautiful place of collaboration and connection and expansion and manifestation. We'll be going into that more and looking at really getting clear on, what do you want? What are you here for? So I love this conversation. I love this topic. Let me know if you want to know more about this, because I could speak to this till the cows come home, and I've got a lot of lived experience on this. All right, beautiful people, I'm going to wrap it up now. I hope this helps. Let me know. Have yourself the most beautiful day. Sending so much love. Bye for now.